This is the Checkpoints, hosted and co-authored by Lena Kvanchilashvili and myself. I'm Georgi Sakadze, and we have gathered here in Forbes Studio to give you more information on business and economics.
Sunday, 10 p.m. and let us start with Georgia debuting at Kearney's Global Services Location Index 2021 and taking 19th place among the top-ranked countries. GSLI is a biennial ranking published by leading global management consulting organization Kearney. For 2021's edition of the ranking, 60 countries were assessed in 47 measurements grouped in 4 main categories: financial attractiveness, people skills and availability, business environment, and digital resonance.
That's what the first report said about Georgia. Georgia is the crossroads of Europe and Asia and posts competitive rankings on financial attractiveness, workforce skills, and business environment. And let us explain that the GSLI has emerged as the business world's leading benchmark of national competitiveness in the dynamic tax service sector. The credibility of the index is grounded in Kearney's experience as a global authority on international services, networks, and supply chains. What is at the cornerstone of Kearney's is that even the automation has transformed service operations, human capability has remained a central factor. Increasingly, the presence of concentrated digital-savvy talent is a key differentiator between nations, regions, and cities viewing for consideration as business service locations.
It seems we will be talking more about this new index in more detail with the stakeholders. Meanwhile, let us review what Colliers International has provided on the reliance of Georgian economy on tourism. The study maintains that the reliance of the Georgian economy on tourism has increased significantly in the last couple of years. In 2019, tourism made up 8.1% of the gross domestic product of Georgia.
Let us mention that Georgia mainly receives tourists mostly from neighboring countries. Leading countries by the number of tourists in Georgia are Russia, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, and the EU countries collectively. Georgian government has officially opened the air border to our neighboring countries. Apart from this, Georgia opted to lift air travel restrictions for fully vaccinated travelers. All visitors, all of them, who have received 2 doses of any COVID-19 vaccine are permitted to enter the nation without producing a negative PCR test.
And who are these countries? Let's look at the chart. By April 2021, Israel remains outperformer with more than 60% of the total population who received at least 1 vaccine dose. Looking at our neighboring countries, Turkey has the highest performance by 15% of total population and Russia by only 8%. As for Georgia, around 35,000 people have received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine, which is only 1% of the total population.
Yes, and one more fact, Georgian Civil Aviation Agency has published a new flight schedule for summer 2021. Flights from Tbilisi International Airport will be performed to 24 destinations. 4 from Kutaisi International Airports, fully covered by Wizz Air, 6 from Batumi Airport. It should be also mentioned that infrastructure of Georgian airports is being expanded in 2021. Batumi International Airport will have capacity to serve from 1,200,000 to 1.5 million passengers, whereas Kutaisi International Airport is tripping its capacity up to 1,000 passengers per hour. These changes create supporting preconditions for recovering tourism without disruptions.
Colliers, Georgia has also prepared the tourism sector revenue recovery projection. According to this proposed model, the effects of the pandemic will last for about 4 or 5 years. The recovery will be gradual, and the 2019 performance is expected to be achieved or restored by 2024.
Yes, and I think we have to mention also that vaccination has started in Georgia, but despite the fact vaccines are available, At this moment, only around 47,000 people have taken one dose of vaccine, which is just 1%, maybe a bit more, of the total population. This argument is also in the scope of Colliers International, isn't it?
Yes, and based on this argument, Colliers International projects that the number of international visitors will be recovered by 30% compared to 2019. Colliers thinks this will be mainly at the expense of the summer season. In 2022, a higher rate of tourism recovery is expected in accordance to an increased number of vaccinated people, and in Colliers' opinion, it will reach 60% of 2019 performance. A full recovery will not be possible either this year, as the full end of pandemic is still not expected by 2023. Colliers thinks that international tourism will start approaching 2019 results, which will be fully overachieved by 2024.
Yeah. And Colliers International also mentions that domestic tourism has a small role in the sector overall and takes up a mere 28.5%. This is a percent of local tourists, is the total number of tourists staying at hotel-type accommodations.
You're totally right, and with these numbers, Georgia appears in the lower right corner of the graph. It's close to Greece. It is expected that the crisis will have a significant effect on the hotel industry and the economy in general for countries in the same category, and the recovery period will be extensive.
And Colliers International argues that the trajectory of domestic tourism change is significantly different from international tourism.
And it is logical, since due to the restricted mobility between countries, tourists are choosing and will choose local destinations for tourism purposes. In Georgia, domestic tourist visits have decreased just by 10% in 2020 year on year. Therefore, Colliers International expects that in the upcoming years, the results of local tourism will not change as dramatically as in the case of international tourism. We should consider the first 2 months of winter in Georgia 2021, when ski resorts were fully closed and the curfew was in force. At least these 2 months of closure will negatively affect on the total revenues from local tourism too, although still Colliers International predicts that this year 80% of 2019 results will be restored. And as for upcoming 2022-2024, domestic tourism ratio will be stabilized at the rate of 2019.
Yeah, and one more point here is that Colliers International has also taken into account the announced forecasts of Fitch, IMF, and Geostat, Georgian Statistics Department. Economic growth in 21-24 years. So the IMF has decreased projection for 2021 GDP growth to 3.5%. However, projections for following years looks quite optimistic still, and so far growth rate ranges from 5% up to 6%. As a result of the weighting, the forecasts of international and local tourism projected economic growth, Colliers has obtained that revenues in the tourism sector are expected to be recovered in 2021 by 43%, in 2022 by 73%, and in 2023 by 93%.
We are BMG. Follow and subscribe for business and economics news.